We're very matchy today.
Good evening, everybody. From the law firm of Shihab Burke, I'm Sam Shihab, and with me,
Brian Burke.
We're here to take on an hour to talk about the event of the day, the Trump inauguration.
Yeah.
We got a new president today. Congratulations to everybody. Democracy works most of the time. And we wanted to talk about the executive actions that the president promised to sign on day one. Yeah. So day one is not over. I'm assuming day one is the first 24 hours or the first 12 or 14 hours.
Yeah.
So as of 6:01 or 6:02 p.m., there has not been an executive action signed
on the things that we're going to talk about.
On the issues that we want to talk about.
The immigration-centric stuff. However, these things have been circulating in the media since, I think, last Friday. And, you know, it's what we expect. We were talking before this, and we were saying, we were hoping that by now we'd be sitting around reading the full text of these executive orders to get a better idea what they mean. But I still think there's plenty to talk about, and
yes,
that's, well, what we're going to do.
Just a quick introduction for those that are not familiar with us. We are an immigration law firm in Dublin, Ohio. We practice employment immigration law and family immigration law throughout the U.S. and throughout the world. And we take an hour every Monday at 6 o'clock Eastern Time to spend time with the community to talk about anything of an interest. Today is, of course, an important day, January 20th, 2025. We have a new president, and it is Donald Trump. He was sworn in a few hours ago, and we were hoping he's going to be releasing the administrative actions, and we are going to be reading hundreds of pages of material before going at 6 o'clock. They made our life easy. We have live coverage in front of us on a large monitor here, and we're not seeing anything yet that has occurred as of right now. However, as Brian stated, there has been some releases to Congress, to both chambers of Congress, about what he intends to do in the immediate foreseeable future, which is perhaps tomorrow. And let's take them by the number of administrative action he intends to do. And the first one is the end of birthright citizenship. He intends to release an administrative action to deal with or deal what he perceives to be an unfairness to this country. Is people who are having children here in the U.S. become U.S. citizens at birth. He would like to change that.
Yeah.
So the first thing we want to note on that, Brian, that we have noticed that he's going to make it clear is no retroactivity.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal that, hey, listen, I'm not going to go down that path. I'm going to make it easy for me, for everybody else. I am not going to retroactively implement the change in the law. Now, there's a big question as to whether or not he can do this by administrative action. The moment this administrative action is released, you know what's going to happen, Brian.
Lawsuits, lawsuits, lawsuits.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's going to be lawsuits, and because it's a constitutional question whether or not a president of the United States can alter the Constitution of the United States on birthright citizenship.
Well, you know, you're posing it as alter. I'm saying, you know, interpret. And, you know, where does this come from? This comes from the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which I've been so kind as to pull up on the monitors in front of us, Sam. And we've dealt with this legal issue before in this office on immigration. And the 14th Amendment says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And where have we encountered this before, Sam? In the case of diplomats. You know, one exception to people being born in the United States, being citizens of the United States by right of birth, is diplomats. And there's a Supreme Court decision that says, diplomats aren't citizens of the United States by birth because they're not subject to the laws of the United States. They have diplomatic immunity. And that's sort of the logic of it all. You're born to diplomats. Those people aren't subject to the laws. Neither are you. That's kind of that.
So there are two requirements.
Yeah.
One is born or naturalized and subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
Yeah.
So So there is a Supreme Court decision that clearly carved out an exception, which is the children of diplomats who become permanent resident, but do not become U.S. citizen. Do not become U.S. citizen at birth.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting piece, and we've came across it several times in our careers. But there's no other exception that's been carved out.
Yeah.
And the President of the United States believed that he can carve out an administrative exception.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it has to reside upon the subject to the jurisdiction thereof part of it, you know, whether somebody is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And I've read sort of, you know, some sort of proposals on this, and the bottom line is, if you're not in the United States illegally, you're not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And obviously, we're waiting for an official written policy of this and probably some regulations.
That's a very dangerous path.
Oh yeah, I mean, so what? Do all people who enter the United States without authorization or illegally present, do they have diplomatic immunity? Are they not subject to the laws of the United States?
Yeah.
That's the fundamental, fundamental question there.
How can you take him into immigration court?
Yeah. Oh, you know, too bad you can't deport me. I'm not subject to the laws of the United States because I was born here, but I'm not subject to your laws. I'm immune to your immigration laws. It is the number one most interesting part of this thing, and I mean, it sounds like the sort of question a Supreme Court justice will ask. You know,
it's a joke.
Yeah.
The argument is a joke. I'm sorry to say that. To argue that this is, I mean, what do you mean not subject to the jurisdiction? The moment you are on U.S. soil, the diplomat status is by international law exempt diplomats from the laws of the U.S. to protect them for political reasons. So you don't arrest my diplomat and I arrest your diplomat when there is a conflict. So the diplomats can be exiled from the U.S., can be kicked out, can be asked to leave, but cannot be subject to the court of the U.S., and that's by international treaty. Yeah,
I guess this is the sort of thing where he's going to issue some sort of, you know, executive order, and then there has to be regulations. Does that sound crazy? Regulations governing when, you know, somebody.
You know what's going to happen. There's not going to be regulations, and I mean he's
just going to start going after people, or what?
No, he's going to release. I mean, I'm speculating. I don't know, but he's going to release an administrative decision or a statement or a policy,
an order,
an order, and he is going to sit back and look at what the next chess move, because the next move is a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So he's not going to waste his time in doing more because he's going to go to court and is going to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And then once that's resolved, I think implementation will happen. To me.
Well, that becomes the great. I mean, the final. Maybe we'll move on from this topic after, shortly after this. Maybe I'll get my 2 cents. You know, this is the very interesting thing about Donald Trump, a guy who says, "I'll do what I want, and we'll check the receipts later." Right? It's if the Supreme Court says, "No, you can't do that." You know, everybody who's born, who's to stop him from doing what he wants anyway? The executive branch is the people who are responsible for enforcing laws.
Well. This is not a dictatorship.
Agreed.
Okay, this is a democracy. And I can address that on multiple levels.
Okay.
But first and foremost, the Supreme Court may say, you know, they're not going to say no or yes. They're going to say issue a 20-page decision.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then that's going to be analyzed, and like the Muslim ban.
Yeah.
And then it may get modified.
Yeah.
To something to fit in within what the court said.
Yeah, this is true.
And then we come back into
goes through the cycle again. Yeah.
Enforceability is not relevant because Trump is not going to be president of the United States for the next 50 years.
That's the thing I'm always happy to bring up.
Because he's going to have a birth certificate.
Yep.
The child.
Yep.
Will have a birth certificate, and that child will probably sue for a passport.
Yeah. Lawsuits.
Yeah, sue for a passport, and then it'll be interesting to see what happened, because what about a person who has no other country?
Oh, this is something I was talking about earlier with one of our colleagues. There are treaties against that. Treaties against creating stateless people. You know, you're not allowed to do that. Is the bottom line. Yeah.
So there's all kind of complications. So this is he is definitely has every interest to poke the hornet's nest on this issue.
Yeah.
and he does not know what he's going to get from the other end, but he is absolutely committed to doing that.
Yeah, so in principle here, obviously I agree with you poking up hornet's nest, and there's so many questions, like so many issues this creates. I mean, we were just talking about scenarios too.
Yeah, again, so everybody who's joined in or maybe jumped in late on the conversation, there has not been an executive action.
Yeah. I'm literally refreshing the White House website right now, but yeah.
Yeah, we have it on our big screen to keep monitoring it because, he promised, I guess the first promise he made, he failed to fulfill on day one. But
he's got some day one left. He's got some six hours of day one left.
There's 6 hours left. Yeah, it could be released at 9 p.m. So
Yeah.
we'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah.
Maybe as things unfold later on. But yeah, so no executive action, but there is also information that has been shared that says no retroactivity. So this is very important. So if you're worried about your kids who are born here, you're on an H-1B visa, there's no retroactivity.
Yeah.
And that indicates, but again, we haven't read it yet, and we don't know what's in it. We don't know whether it's going to be released, but that's what we know, that the information released from the White House is it will be coming soon. There will be no retroactivity, and it is going to be more focused on the undocumented, Brian?
Yeah, people who are, exclude babysitter parents who are in the country illegally. Obviously there's a great big question of what does in the country illegally mean. There's again, we don't have a policy yet, but did you enter the country illegally, or maybe it's an overstay scenario. We were talking about scenarios here, like a very common scenario for working visas is, oops, I messed something up.
I work outside my LCA location.
Yeah, I mean, and that technically violates.
You have a child. A year later, you get a notice of intent to revoke based on fraud.
Yeah.
With retroactive effect. Is the child was a citizen this year, becomes a uncitizened next year?
Yeah.
So there is a endless number of questions.
It sounds like booming business for immigration attorneys if things go down those.
And constitutional attorneys.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, this is very true for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know what's going to happen, but definitely it looks like it's coming.
It's super interesting talking points for a bunch of immigration attorneys.
Yeah.
That's
well,
for sure.
It's very it's a true impact on people who are on H-1B visas, on H-4.
I mean,
grace period. What if you're in the grace period? What if you are in a exceptional hardship EAD.
Oh yeah, you are not in status with an exceptional, what's extreme hardship, whatever the hardship is, the hardship EAD. That's a great one. You're not in status. You're allowed to stay.
You're not illegal though.
Yeah, but.
So there's a lot of things here that we don't know.
And Sam, I somehow believe that the executive order is not going to give us the sort of details that we're really looking for anyway. Do you think it's going to be?
It will be for years.
Yeah, I know.
It'll be for years.
But again,
there'll be another uncertainty. And this is the thing. I was having a conversation with someone. The thing that drives away super smart people from this country is the uncertainty. When you start throwing bombs, and if people say, "I don't want to be in the middle of this. I don't want to deal with this. I want to go to a country where there's certainty, there's predictability, there's respect." So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, so what's the next thing here that we are hearing about, Brian?
So let's see. A lot of this.
No employment-specific issue that I can read or find anywhere that's been discussed on day one.
But we're a bunch of immigration attorneys, and we can't resist even telling this audience,
absolutely. But I just want to let everybody know, we haven't seen an employment-based proposal for an executive action on day one.
Yeah.
Yet.
Which fine with me. Leave employment immigration alone. Thank you.
Yes.
So the next sort of several things here. It relates a lot to the border. Declare the border a national emergency with all illegal entry will be halted. Well, to that I say good luck. That's the old guns don't kill people, people kill people sort of thing. Yes, there's laws against doing that. People gets killing people, but people get killed anyway. And there's laws against entering the United States illegally, and people are still going to find ways to enter the United States without authorization. Is the bottom line.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen.
I mean, I know what that means more for the people in our audience, but
Yeah, but people will come in, but the rate of entry,
Yeah.
I mean, we have a problem at the border.
yeah. Yeah.
We have a problem
Yeah.
at the border and the southern border, and there's no cooperation from the government of Mexico
Yeah.
on this question. And he wants to reduce the rate of entry. It has gone out of control.
Yeah.
And during his prior administration, I mean, when he was President Trump, the prior term, he had the same problem.
Yeah.
It's not a problem caused by the Biden, and we've had it for decades. But he is going to dispatch the National Guards.
Well, troops, some sort of troops at the
Some
border.
kind of
Got to be national guard things. People who you can deploy domestically. You have problem. Well, dispatching, the army, that sort of thing, creates its own issues. But more security at the border. I guess realistically, I'm thinking about our audience, who's mostly employment-based immigrants. More scrutiny in the border could be more security checks, more. Do you think that impacts the people who are entering the United States legally, Sam?
Well, there is the one that jumps at me, and I'm just jumping here into the one that when I went down the list and the issues that I said, what is this? Invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798.
Yeah.
Now, anytime you invoke a law that's 200 years old, you know you're in trouble. I haven't read it.
No, you're right.
I didn't bother reading
Yeah.
it, okay? But what the heck is 1798? This is 228 years ago?
I think this has to do with one of those laws to declare, the foreign gangs and criminals to be, terrorists, and so we can get rid of them and use certain forces and authorities against them to basically eradicate them in the United States.
So why do you have to go to 1798? 1798, Brian.
Yeah. So
we must have passed maybe 1 million laws and regulations
Yeah.
since 1798.
and you'd hope that something would cover this issue since 1799. So you were really kind of hitting the old lawyer's joke.
I think existing laws are there.
Yeah, if you're arguing the Constitution, you're in trouble. And if you're arguing laws from 1798, you have some issues there. That's for sure. It's the Alien Sedition Act. It's like treason. It's the treason acts essentially.
Well, it grants the president unilateral authority to deport non-citizens who are subject to foreign enemies. That's ridiculous.
Well,
I mean, okay, fine. I think it sounds fancy. They're doing the same thing. There's nothing new.
well, yeah.
Sorry.
Well, yeah.
Fun
fact. Yeah.
This is to get people excited who are sitting in some faraway place who cannot in 3 minutes figure this out.
Yeah.
There's really nothing new.
Well, yeah. One of the you mean it's the executive could always unilaterally do deportation, but there's a process you have to go through. Obviously, is the bottom line, because it's just.
Well, you have administrative removal.
Yeah. Well, again, so I guess this is where we go back to the point of, I guess we're going to have to wait to see how these policies develop. But I agree with you in principle that you're in trouble when you're arguing laws from the 1790s when the nation was barely a nation. That's for sure. Well, Sam.
All right.
So, do you think that the border scrutiny, the no illegal entry, more troops at the border, you think that's likely to impact regular folks' legal entry into the United States?
Well, it impacts them in terms of creating that level of anxiety crossing the border.
Yeah, at the very least, and I can't help but think, more scrutiny, more interrogation at the border. That seems to be a likely result of that if you're trying to stop illegal entry, and as long as that is, determined broadly, basically, I'd be a little bit worried about that. Obviously, it remains to be seen, but I would expect more scrutiny on travelers, I guess, in that context.
And then the one that says seek death penalty for undocumented immigrant who commit a capital crime. Well, okay. Well, I mean, you can debate the death penalty, whether this is a humane or inhumane. That's a different conversation. I don't want to go down that road. There is a million people, a million different opinions on this issue. So that doesn't bother me. What side of, but capital crime is not my problem in this country. Not undocumented committing capital crimes. Not like undocumented are shooting people every day in this country. I mean, there has been some incidents here and there, as a mix with, everything else. But this is not okay.
Well, capital crimes. I mean,
it sounds like it's to make people happy.
Yeah.
Make angry people happy. Executive order.
Well, I mean, there was a law passed. There's a law that was just going through Congress relating to that Lincoln Riley Act about about requiring police to hold in custody people who have been convicted of sort of lower level crimes. Maybe the law is not signed in yet, but it was the one about, we were talking about it last week. It's the one Lincoln Riley Act about yet the police have to detain for immigration purposes, like certain theft crimes, that sort of thing. I don't know whether that one's being passed into law.
Yeah, that's not on this list, but it's a law that basically proposes to arrest people, but it's really people who are undocumented.
That's
or
true.
People who are DACA. DACA for certain activities to immediately arrest them.
Yeah. So
none of this impacts law-abiding.
Lawfully present people.
Lawfully present people or people who go out of status, without, incidental to changing employment or forgetting to renew. I mean, obviously, I'll be curious about the birthright citizenship, how that impacts it. But
that's the most interesting one, I think, for this audience.
But there's nothing here really for our crisis in the visa area. But that is going to come with time. Yeah. And that is not going to be something by an executive order. That's going to be by Congress. And we're going to see what's going to happen.
So you're speaking as if it's going to be. I consider,
if it's going to.
Yeah, if it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
I consider this, sort of, a treatise, a headline for the next 4 years of immigration policy. And this is kind of a continuation of the last 4 years of immigration policy. Yeah. What are we talking about? What matters? Border, mostly people unlawfully present, mostly the border, asylum seekers, that sort of thing. That's really kind of it. Yeah. And it's nothing for employment. I didn't expect anything for employment. Donald Trump is the sort of guy who can surprise you sometimes, but it's not going
to be on one day. Nobody even cared to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's my entire point. It's nobody cares about lawful immigration to the United States. It is such I think everybody who people who don't have an understanding of lawful immigration to the United States think they understand. Oh, you just do it legally. You just do it legally. I think that's the average person's, the extent of their analysis on lawful immigration to the United States, Sam. They just say, oh yeah, I like the people who do it legally. Nobody has any clue what that means. And I think these policies are absolutely reflective of that. I think if you want, if these policies are about punish the people who come lawfully, you'd think reciprocally you'd want to reward the people who come legally. And these policies don't. These are reflective of the fact that nobody cares, nobody understands what lawful immigration to the United States is, or at least no doubt there are people in the incoming government and the outgoing government that know about it, but their voices are beeps in the as compared to the roaring, thunderous voices of those who are saying border, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So
there we are.
Yeah. So what?
You turn on the side chat overlay.
So that's kind of disappeared here. I think if I close that, we bring it back.
Sam is tweaking the. Nope, that fixes that. Well, we'll have to refresh the page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep on talking here as this page refreshes, and hopefully everything will work all the live long day just fine.
Be that as it may. Yeah. Be that as it may. Let's see if we get the chance.
Hey, there's our chat back.
All right, so let's go to that first one, Brian, and jump in right here.
Well, I will agree. There's one other thing on the list. They're just saying they're gonna end asylum.
Okay, let's talk about asylum.
Yeah, real quick.
Yes.
Can they end asylum?
Well, they can end practically. I mean, for theoreticals, yeah. I mean, legally, probably they can.
There are laws. Yeah, there's international laws that provide for asylum.
So there's asylum.
Yeah.
And there is Convention Against Torture.
Yeah.
International law.
Yeah.
And both of them say that you cannot send people back to the country. Really,
hence the concept of asylum. Yeah.
It's really the Convention Against Torture, which is, I think, the U.S. is signatory to, which means that you cannot send people back to a country in which there's a high likelihood that this person will be killed, tortured, or unfairly imprisoned.
And to address that, you offer people asylum, right? Yeah.
Now, well, no, you don't offer asylum. You can offer them the right to stay here, but not as an asylee. So there's an asylees, and then there is people who stay here in the United States who do not have an asylum right. Asylum is a right that converts eventually to a permanent residency.
Sure.
Whereas people who are go to a CAT, they call it Convention Against Torture, individuals stay here with no status. So they can probably they cannot remove people to a country in which there is a high likelihood that this person will be tortured or killed, but they can probably take this asylum and make it impossible practically. So from a practical standpoint, yes, I believe they can. In my opinion.
I mean,
international law is the Convention Against Torture.
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking. I guess maybe the point I would make is there's all these things on this list, Sam. There sure is a lot of stuff behind it. There's a lot of things you have to think about behind it.
So we don't want to go into asylum too much, but I can tell you that asylum laws in the U.S. have been horrifyingly abused.
I have to agree with you on that one.
Okay, and
I hear stories. I hear people who
horrifyingly been abused. Yeah. Okay, and it's overwhelming the system.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
On the other hand, some people have a legitimate cases.
Oh yeah, I believe in the legitimate concept of asylum because of course I do. It's the right thing to do. Don't send people back to countries where they're going to.
They can practically take this asylum. I mean, there is a congressional act. There's laws, but he can practically not accept any more asylum.
Not enforce those laws.
Not take more applications, send them back, and not process them.
And that's where things get interesting. That's and to end our conversation on all these things, it starts where it begins. Lawsuits is the bottom line. I think.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, let's go with the first one, Ryan.
The first one.
I think from the other end, right?
No, it should be top of the list. Yeah.
All right.
So.
After January 17, 2025 H-1B regulation, can one open a YouTube channel as long as one's 49% vested in it?
So, I have an answer, a starting answer for that one.
So, okay, maybe I'm being obvious here. Opening a YouTube channel is not employment. But if you're doing it for a business or for profit, then it becomes
employment.
Yeah,
Just because, maybe I'll give a little bit more context. There are rules in the new H-1B rules effective Friday. It says, and there's talk of you can be an owner in your H-1B sponsoring organization, right? But presuming this is a money-generating employment income YouTube channel, well, that's a business, and that business, if you're working on an H-1B visa, you have to be sponsored on an H-1B visa through additional H-1B filing through a business. So it's possible to even have, if your YouTube channel is a business and you're working in a specialty occupation, and that employer can meet the requirements to file an H-1B visa, it's possible, but it just doesn't seem very practical for most people.
So opening a YouTube channel will generate an income that ranges between $0 to $100,000.
Oh yeah, you have to turn on monetization on YouTube. You can.
So flipping the monetization button to on alone renders you illegal?
That's a really good question, Sam, and it's the sort of thing where I want to think about it for a while. But if I wanted to give advice to somebody who was on a working visa and wanted to start a YouTube channel, don't push the button. Don't create interesting attorney questions for me.
I don't have to think about it. I'll give you the answer.
Yeah?
Yeah. If you are a person on Trump's shit list, excuse my friends, flipping that button on is considered employment.
Yeah.
If you're not, it is not a problem.
So I'm going to thereby abide by my conservative advice is don't flip the button. There's probably literally...
We have a very, very equal application of the law in this country in which there are certain people will be treated one way equally and other people will be treated a different way equally. I'm being sarcastic, of course. But yes. So it depends.
Yeah.
Let's take the next one.
Yeah. And can the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, meddle with USCIS operations since it's a self-funded organization? My answer is, I don't know.
Well, no. Well, I mean, by theory, and I lost my microphone. Let me grab it first. By theory, the answer is no. It does not interfere with USCIS because it's self-funded, which is a shame because we have
they're a
talked.
mess. Yeah.
It's a disaster when it comes to efficiency.
Yeah.
But maybe in the final analysis, it's a good thing.
Well, I'm going to elaborate on my, I don't know. It's because we are 6.5 hours into the new administration, and this is a vaguely described government office. It was described before the administration began. I don't see why they can't interfere. It depends upon what the president gives them in powers. The president can manage USCIS. The president can tell USCIS what to do, and if he can delegate the power to tell USCIS what to do to this office, sure.
So that's an excellent point, and I can make an argument in that on that side because here's what happened. Let's assume hypothetically that he goes into USCIS and say, "Are you kidding me? You're charging $1,440 for filing an adjustment of status that takes you 75 minutes to adjudicate. That's costing you $150 plus another $200 in overhead. Okay, double that, or 3 times $500. You're charging 3 times the fair rate for this review. You cannot do that. It is a waste." Now,
I don't think that's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you my version in a moment here.
now, hold on a second. So now what happens? "Oh, we're sorry, Mr. Trump. We're reducing it to $550. No, you're not. You're just spending $550. You're going to give me the other $1,000 because I'm hiring more ICE people to go after. But can he convert that fee? You know, the I-140 had an asylum fee in it.
Yeah,
right?
oh my God,
the I-140 has an asylum fee in it.
Well, everything has most everything has an asylum fee.
Yeah.
H-1Bs do as well. So
Yes, as well. So he has to have some.
Cross that out. Asylum fee.
And say law enforcement fee.
Yeah, deportation
But
fee.
do you need Congress to do that?
I'm pretty. I'll have to check on the law associated with the asylum fee. I suspect there was a law that was passed. Maybe it was just a regulation. I'm not sure.
Don't know. But yes, I think you can mess with it.
Yeah, yeah.
But not to help you, and that's not your question.
Yeah.
Anyways, is just to kind of trying to extract more money for other things from your filing fee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it.
Maybe I have a problem with the fact that USCIS takes in money, but deportation is a department. It's another type of function. It's outside of USCIS, but it's part of. Again, anything's on the table. It's what can they try, Sam? It's what will they try? It's not a crazy question, I guess, is the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, my H-1B and H-4 are approved last week. Yes, it's fantastic. So that's wonderful before the new administration, so there's no headache. Yet to receive my H-1B copy, can I apply for H-4 EAD for a spouse based on my email approval and receipt and the copy of the H-4 approval? I need to apply before. Okay, so I guess the question is, can I use a copy? Can I use the copy to apply for further benefit, immigration benefit that I have a copy? Yeah, you can use the copy, I think, to file.
Trying to get. I thought they issued regulations that made the 540-day extension.
180.
I thought they made the. I thought there's a regulation to. Well, I'll spare that. But I'm just curious. USCIS automatic extension. EAD. I thought they made that. They made it. On December 13th, 2024, basically final rule that permanently increases the automatic extension period for employment authorization EAD available to EAD renewal applicants
from 180 to 540.
Yeah. Final rule became effective on January 13th. So unless, so that's something for Surrey to think about. Obviously, it's sort of talk to an attorney whether that 131 deadline. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what Surrey is saying here, but
I think he's asking. I think the question is do I need the H-4 approval in hand to apply for the EAD and take advantage? If you go back to the question, the question is focused on, do I need the original documents to apply for the EAD, or is this now, because he's anxious to get the EAD filed.
Out the door,
Out the door. I would say he doesn't have to have the H-4.
No, you can give them, a screenshot of if you have your H-1B approval copy for premium processing, for example, send that premium processing email.
The only problem you can get to if that notification is invalid or incorrect, then you've wasted your money.
So in this not too crazy scenario where USCIS issues a written approval notice, but they never send it, instead issue an RFE, for example. Sometimes it's less than 1% in my book, but
you can use it for now. That's the question, I think.
You basically, USCIS filings are about evidence, evidence of your H-1B approval. If you have evidence is evidence, and if they take it, they take it. I think there's a good chance you'll be successful there.
I think so. All right, Brian, take that one.
So, my I-485 national interest waiver based rest of the world is pending. Do you think there'll be mandatory interviews for all green card applicants? Well,
I mean, last time I think they were doing.
They were during the prior Donald Trump administration. It was green card interviews for everybody, employment, family, etc.
But I'm not prepared to say that there will be.
I'm not prepared to say there will be, but basically I've been bringing it up with people. I said just no guarantees, but that was the policy last time. It's not crazy to think that old policies will come back. Is the bottom line. Don't be surprised if it does. Be happy if it doesn't come back, I guess is my take on it.
Yes.
So from Tech Topics.
My wife got C-36 EAD approved while F-2 change of status has been pending. If her F-2 change of status is approved, will she has to re-enter the U.S. to get F-2 to be effective? Well, so my wife got C-36 EAD approved while F-2 change of status has been pending.
Okay, so C-36, as I suspected, is compelling circumstances.
Now, so did she start working? And is she out of status now because with the cessation of employment? So those are good questions. So we need to know, I'm assuming you stopped working and then you filed for the compelling circumstances EAD, and then because you stopped working, you fell out of status, but you get this approval, which is a good news. Your wife got the approval, which is good news. But clearly you're not in status anymore because you are in a compelling circumstances EAD.
That's using the compelling circumstances EAD, right?
But he may have stopped working too, so he fell out of status automatically.
Yeah. So I guess the fundamental question is, would you agree that just having the C-36 EAD does not put you out of status, correct?
Right, but when you apply, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
When you apply for a compelling circumstances EAD, sounds like you've lost your job.
Yeah.
And if you've lost your job, you're out of status.
Depends upon.
More likely than not.
Yeah. If your status has lapsed, a compelling circumstances EAD is not a bridge. It's not status. Is the bottom line.
Yes. So if you've lost it sounds like to me you've lost his job.
Yeah.
Based on getting the EAD approved.
Yeah.
And because of that, you are in a compelling circumstances EAD status. It's not really legal status, but it's you're permitted to stay in the U.S., but you're not in status. To get to F2, to get to his question, you got to leave and re-enter the U.S.
Well, I'm going to pose take the same question and interpret it differently.
Okay.
So I'm imagining this scenario. At the same time, you're on H-1B status, right? Oh shoot, I lost a job, 60-day grace period, right? Sometime during that 60-day grace period, you file compelling circumstances EAD and an F1 change of status for husband and an F2 change of status for spouse, all at the same time, right? And if you never use that compelling circumstances EAD, you filed within the grace period, and they approve the F1 change of status and they approve the F2 change of status, you change to F1 and F2 respectively.
Especially if she did not work.
Yeah, if she did not, but if that EAD came in and you work, it basically takes you out of your H4 status or your EAD status, and that would require travel to re-enter.
Okay. And then one more twist on the question, which is, I think you're right on there. One more twist on the question is, if that F2 change of status was filed outside the 60-day grace period,
it's a bad F2.
Then it's a wasted F2 change of status.
For sure.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I guess sort of a follow-up question from Tech Topics here. Can F1 change of status from H-1B and F1 OPT be applied together? And my answer has to be no.
Not likely, because to get an OPT, you must have had a graduation. Yeah, I graduated in the program, and there's certain rules about the amount of time you're studying. So this is a conversation with the very highly unlikely, but I'm not going to say impossible, but this is a conversation you want to have with the DSO, designated school official, to say, am I entitled to an OPT? I was studying, but I was not on F1. I was on H4, and now I'm graduating. I'm switching to an F1, and
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
you're saying
I'm
there. Yeah.
I'm graduating now. Can I get an OPT? And he's going to go and look, and he's going to say, no, because you have not been on F1 for a duration.
Yeah.
Or he may say yes, which is, I would say, not very likely.
Yeah.
But go talk to the DSO.
Yeah, I have to agree with it. It seems worth asking, but highly unlikely. I would say for sure.
I mean, you just have to do time spent on F1 to be granted OPT.
Yeah, I think it usually.
That's really the question. Yeah. So we can go on the next question.
Well, I got to click that next question. There we are. H4 EAD filed I guess that's a passport that will soon expire. Shall submit new passport with receipt number to USCIS? If yes, which address? Which extra documents needed? Note there is no RFE yet. So this kind of addresses an issue that I always found kind of interesting, Sam. Basically, there is a requirement for all non-immigrants in the United States. You're always supposed to have a valid passport. And boy howdy, do the customs enforce that upon people. They will not give you an I-94 that goes beyond the validity of your passport. Now, USCIS, technically they're subject to those same rules, but they never really seem to care about that. If you file an H4 EAD, now policies can change, but in our experience around here, if you file your H4 EAD with a valid passport, I really wouldn't anticipate any issues. They expect you to get a new passport when your new passport comes in, which you already have, and I don't consider it highly likely that you would get an RFE in this scenario. And how do you feel about Sam preemptively responding, preemptively creating an RFE, and I don't mean to poke fun at Susanta, but preemptively responding to this issue?
I don't.
I don't either. Yeah.
No, I don't want to get their attention to something that's. And then it depends, by the way, on your on where you're from. For example, India, I believe, has a 6 months automatic extension by treaty.
Yeah.
So
takes them to the end of the passport. Yeah.
And 6 months more.
So that's you're right. You're right. So that might apply differently for USCIS because CBP has a policy which you're
completely different.
The reason why CBP for Indians goes up to the end of the passport, I researched this once, is basically there's a requirement that you have a passport valid for 6 months.
Correct.
So by that treaty that goes 6 months past, that's why they can give you to the last date of your passport. Whereas USCIS, maybe that's how USCIS, maybe they're just happy with your passport's valid for 6 months because you give it to us before you expire.
Yeah, your passport is presumed to be valid for 6 additional months.
Yeah.
With USCIS.
Yeah.
And I understand what you're saying about CBP. Yeah.
I'm down in the weeds, and for that I apologize to the audience.
Yeah.
Back to I lost track of our mouse cursor. Here it is. From Surya, this is, I think, a question that was already asked and we already addressed. From Asunia. Hello, Sam and Brian. I'm an Indian-born U.S. citizen. My brother recently passed away. Can I sponsor a green card for my sister-in-law under family preferences?
There is not a sister-in-law under family preferences, unfortunately. I'm sorry about the passage of your brother, but there's no, and also for brothers, the wait time is like 18 years or something. It's such a small category and it's such a big application. Demand that's going for it that is absolutely, there's a lot of talk about eliminating that. I won't be surprised if this is one of the things that has never been discussed. I'm not lucky with my mic.
Well, I'll pick it up. I have a conversation about, sponsoring brothers and sisters with people maybe like once or twice a month. And the realistic, I always tell people, I think the clip has to be flipped around on that thing.
Yeah, I don't know how to flip it.
I'll admit it may be my fault. When I was cleaning up around here, I may have, you have to set to like disconnect it and flip it over.
Yeah.
But I have a conversation with maybe like once or twice a month with somebody on the subject, and I usually tell them, you know, I'm happy to do it for you, but you should probably try to find some other option because realistically, this sure is a long time, and people age out of this by passing away. Essentially, that's the problem. You know, waiting 17 years for a green card in the United States is not highly practical. For most people anyway. You know, it's crazy. The kids that
they're happy to take your money. They don't even adjudicate the cases.
Yeah. Oh my. That's the number one most frustrating.
But it's a great for Child Status Protection Act.
Yeah, that is. Like, I never really thought about that, but that is a very generous thing they do about Child Status Protection Act. And Sam, we've gone deep into the weeds again, and I don't want to get into a 15-minute explanation of why that's awesome. But you're right. You're entirely right.
Well, we can
Sam.
explain it. So, for example, if there's a brother who's applying for a brother, and they basically file the application, you pay the fee, which is $750 now?
No, it's like 670,
670 or something.
All the fees are like right around the same amount, and I hate it because I can't remember what they are anymore.
So you pay $670 right now, and they give you a receipt notice.
Yep.
And they take the file. They don't even read anything in it. They don't say anything.
They sit in the case for like a decade.
They just put it on the folder, and then they will go more than a decade.
Yeah.
So now, if the brother has a child who is, let's say, 19 years old, at the time this I-130 was filed, now without the visa availability, still it's I-130 pending, you get all that time.
Yeah.
10 years later, they open it, that child is
entitled to a big old giant amount of time on this Child Status Protection Act.
28 years old.
Yeah.
Assuming he's not married.
Yeah.
Because of the moment he gets married, he drops out, or she gets married. Assuming they're single, they could potentially immigrate with the family.
Yeah, it does some
crazy stuff.
But boy, howdy, do people really get frustrated and stressed? You know, we have a couple of those out there. Hey, Brian, my petition for my brother has been pending for 5 years. Any update? No, that's normal. You know, it's a real bummer for people for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, hi Sam Brian, when can we expect family-based spillover number for fiscal year 2025?
Those were out. Well, no specific number, but there's a little policy statement that said some but less, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this email reminds me when people are trying to check on the status of their case. When do we expect my H-1B to go out?
Yeah.
It's a legitimate question. We don't know. I guess they've decided not to publish it. I don't know.
Yeah, it bothers me. Shouldn't they figure that out pretty close to the beginning of the fiscal year so they know how to,
Hey, we got 1 year to figure this one out.
Yeah. It annoys me. Here we are. From GOHC. Hello, Sam and Brian. I have my green card interview, EB3, tomorrow. My priority date is not current. What are the possible outcomes after my interview and everything goes well?
They close the file and they put it away. Yeah.
So I'm going to travel back in time. Maybe when I first started doing this. Used to be you could ask them, officer, do you think you're going to be able to prove this case? And they would be able to tell you yes. Now, at the end of the interview, they'll hand you a piece of paper with like a series of 3 check boxes on it, and it'll basically say, we'll contact you when we're ready to contact you, and that's sort of it. You really can't really expect any sort of, substantive response from them on this one. Sometimes you get a nice one.
So what? The new thing I think they're getting away from it because they were just having like pre-canned questions and answer that they ask sometime.
Yeah.
So they have like 25 questions and they ask you, what was the first job you did? What's the second job you did?
The questions, yeah.
And they ask those questions and then they're typing your answers, which is a nightmare, nightmare because these people are not professional typists.
Yeah.
And they type half what you say.
Yeah.
And the other half that they type, it's half of it wrong. Words missing, statements incomplete.
So you're talking about this scenario where they try to get where they ask these questions.
And then now you have to sign it under oath that's true and accurate.
So you're talking. I want to elaborate a little bit more because I was answering a different question. I was answering what happens. You're talking about what happens during a typical employment-based interview when your party date's not current and maybe they're interviewing for you for some reason. There's been a trend in the last couple of years where they will basically start looking at a list of questions and start asking you sort of real specific questions about your employment. How did you find your employer? How do they hire you?
The fraud unit.
The fraud unit, yeah.
Sends those questions to the adjustment interview person who has
no experience.
25 millimeter depth knowledge of the topic of employment immigration.
Yeah.
And then now he is reading the question and typing your answers, who has no typing skills. And now you're talking, answering, and he's typing every fifth word you're saying.
And they're going to hand you a document that says, hey, these are the answers to your questions. Can you sign off on that? And you look at it, it says, it's all gobbledygook. I didn't say half of that, and half of what you said I didn't say, and I said something entirely different. And I guess, what's your advice if they hand you something to sign in an interview like this and says none of it makes a lick of sense?
Don't sign it. I mean, I've had a situation where we've had to correct, and then finally there was pushback from the officer. Doesn't want to do it anymore, and I said we're not going to sign it.
Yeah,
and then I asked for a supervisor.
Yeah.
I said, get me a supervisor, and they hate that, Yeah. And nobody wants tension in an interview. But the problem is when you sign something that's not true, especially like, for example, what was your first job, and then you put something completely not what you said, and then the job doesn't sound like it's in the labor certification.
Sure.
It's inconsistent with the labor certification. Then all of a sudden, 6 years later, they can come back and say, were you doing this work? No, I wasn't. What do you mean? You just signed on this page.
So if we're going to articulate a risk of these, employment-based interviews where your party date's not current, be on the lookout for them. Asking you strange questions and trying to get you to sign documentation that maybe is not necessarily true. And I would agree with Sam. You can ask them to correct these things. Yes, I'm sorry, this isn't accurate. Can we tweak this? Can I handwrite it? Can we fix this?
And a lot of time we get really good competent. I've had them really good competent officers who were careful, took the time to enter the information accurately, and experience was detailed but very positive. Yeah. So there's those guys as well.
Yeah,
so,
I've only had maybe one who was really kind of ornery about it, and they were, it's about finding a solution. And that one I think was content, didn't want to retype our changes. Well, is it okay if we just cross out what you've written? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see here. Sonu, when will EB3 or EB2 India February 15th, 2013 become current? I think I have a visa bulletin up here. And that is final action dates, India, February 15th, 2013. That doesn't sound it's not so far off. EB3 India is in.
So what's the filing date?
That's filing date is in 8th of June 2013 for EB3 India.
So yeah, it should be this year.
That's the theory of it all. If basically dates for filing or where dates are expected to be in the foreseeable future, I'd say it doesn't sound crazy.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see here. A question from Atul. Can the Department of Government Efficiency meddle with USCIS and say, hey, these folks are here in H-1B for more than 10 years, let them apply for the freaking I-485 and don't take their extension dollars anymore?
Well, the first part, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Who knows who this Department of Efficiency authority, what it is? I mean, there's a lawsuit filed today.
Yeah, relating to that, you saw that news article as well.
Yeah, well, they promised to file it last week. As of last week, they said.
I only caught the article today. Yeah.
No, this said we will file our lawsuit immediately after the presidential inauguration.
Yeah. So the Department of Government Efficiency, if anybody's not clear, has already been sued. Sued over its policies or
who they are, what do they do, and what. So that's the lawsuit was already filed today. So
if I had to make a guess as to what that's going to do is that agency itself, I imagine they're just going to be making recommendations, reports, and somebody else in the government is going to make decisions as to actually what to do with them. And I guess those people, they can make changes to USCIS, but who can make changes to those things? H-1B more than 10 years, don't take the extensions. That's a change of the law. And there you go. And I don't think the government's going to looking to give up those. I think that's their favorite part of the H-1B program, the money.
The Department of Government Efficiency is a kite in a ocean. There's so much inefficiency that you think they are going to reach to USCIS. They have so much inefficiency, and now they're already being attacked. Right?
Yeah.
And they have so much work and so much pushback. I'm assuming the lawsuit stemmed maybe from the union, trying to bring all these government employees back to the office. So there's so much pushback. For them to get to USCIS, that would be an amazing thing. I don't see it, at least if Trump is president for the next 20 years, maybe. He'll get to it on year number 19.
Let's go to the subject of lawsuits. The lawsuits are going to be so much fun over the next couple of years. They're going to just be popcorn munchers of lawsuits.
Right.
That's for sure.
Exactly. Yes. Absolutely.
So from Wesley here, have you seen any successful case of H-1B stamping within the U.S.? And
there was when they did the pilot program.
Yeah.
And then that was the pilot program goes with Biden, by the way. It's gone.
Well, Sam, I love pilot. I don't know what the pilot metaphor is. I think that pilot has flown off into the Bermuda Triangle to never be seen again.
That pilot is missing in action. We're looking for the black box right now.
Exactly. To carry that metaphor to its morbid end. I don't expect anything else from that in the near future.
Until we get the FAA reports. All right. Duran. Hi, Sam and Brian. I'm currently adjusting status from F1 to EB3 as a nurse from Turkey with a priority date of April 2024. My husband's employer is now planning to sponsor both of us for H-1B. I think that came before.
H-1B, here's part 2.
Those H-1B positions for retail job. Could this create an issue with my current adjustment of status process? So I'm assuming you and your husband on F1, F2, perhaps you and your husband F2 applying for an H-1B, and then you're going to be on H4, and then you're applying for a nurse position, which is the adjustment of status. So if you file for an adjustment of status, she's not applying for an H4. She's going to stay on adjustment of status.
Well,
but the fact that your husband is on H4, H-1B, has no impact. But why would she?
Well, I want to go through these.
Priority date is not current?
Well, yeah. From Turkey, basically, there's still going to be a backlog for EB3 category.
Adjusting status.
So so they're on F1 right now. You agree? And they're
adjusting.
Planning to adjust. I'm currently adjusting status from F1 to F3. So who knows how deep they are in the process?
So it's EB3, April 2024, Brian. What's the filing date? Dates for filing.
Dates for filing.
EB3
is March of 2023. So it could be possible they've already filed for adjustment of status. But here's the thing that bothers me.
How can it be possible? April 2024.
Probably the priority date of April 2024.
So I think it's misleading when she said adjusting. We'll adjust status, I think. We'll adjust status.
Probably
that's why.
Yeah, but the priority date hasn't filed yet. So that's why they're getting to H-1B. Now, I go down through this. Here's the thing that bothers me about this. Is something that I choose to be concerned about as an immigration attorney. Those H-1B positions for retail jobs, that doesn't make a lick of sense to me. Okay, I don't know all the details.
I think he could be a senior manager of a retail store.
Sure. Okay.
It doesn't mean anything.
So let me elaborate. I was just kind of concerned. H-1B specialty occupations, the type of jobs that normally require H-1B positions for retail jobs doesn't really align with H-1B in my mind. But I guess the devil's in the details, and you're right on that one. That's for sure.
Yes, and we're taking one more question before it hits 7 o'clock, Brian.
Yes, important business this evening. That's for sure. So tech topics, text topics. There was a question about change the C3060AD.
Yes.
Said yes, I lost my job. I'm on F1, but did not start working. My wife has not been working, but thinking of starting work to support family. So my wife's change of status to F2 was applied before a 50 grace period. So
okay, good. So your fact pattern is what it is.
So that's why, Sam, we always issue that disclaimer that our answers during this thing are based upon a snippet of information, and so tech topics, you really owe it to yourself to talk to an attorney about this. The bottom line is, with a conversation with an attorney, your questions can be answered pretty quickly.
Leaving the country and coming back to get on F2. But looks, clearly we need a little bit more facts to get it. Maybe a consultation with a competent attorney will help you out.
Yeah.
With that, we end our session today, Brian.
All right.
It is 7 o'clock. Come back next week, and we're going to have a lot more to talk about executive actions.
I think we're going to have a lot to talk about for a while, Sam.
Yeah.